interesting idea for a study. They looked at the effect of teacher misbehaviors on student discernment of credibility, and they looked at behaviors perceived by the students as like lazy or indolent. They looked at behaviors that students perceive as incompetent, and they looked at behaviors perceived as offensive. And there was not equality amongst how much these three things would hurt. Offensive misbehaviors were incredibly more damaging than behaviors perceived as lazy or incompetent. And that's hard news, because how many of you can guarantee me that you won't unintentionally embarrass a child this year? Or that you won't humiliate a child? It could just be the wrong thing said at the wrong time in front of the wrong people, right? We are guaranteed to embarrass somebody this year. It's a hard thing. And so the wise teacher, I think, they're not trying to perfectionistically avoid all offense, but they are trying to be very attentive to changes in student affect. And then they ask, hey, seems like you've been kind of different in class lately. Did I offend you somehow? You pull them aside one-on-one and have that brief conversation. And if you have, you apologize. And that'll repair it. That fixes it. There's much more to say on teacher credibility, and it should be said, but we have to move into value. So, credibility's on top, because if you're a credible teacher, then you can speak to the value of reading. You can speak to the value of trying hard when you encounter a difficult text. You can speak to efficacy, and you can speak to belonging. But if you're not credible, then those messages are going to be less likely to be heard by students and acted upon. So credibility is on the top, because it's kind of the belief that rules them all. And value is next. Value is more important than these others, because value is when our kids say, reading is cool. I like writing. I can't imagine not having the chance that I have each day in your class to write. I love choice reading time. Those are all expressions of the value belief. And when our students say things like, reading is for nerds, writing is useless and dumb, those are expressions of the dark side of the value belief. So how do we affect this? There's a million ways. I bet every single session that you've been to has touched upon this, right? Some people talk about the value of choice. This links well with Dan Pink's book, Drive, where he boils motivation down into autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is, the reason that we like choice is because we get to pick things that we naturally value. So choice is definitely a path to cultivating the value belief in your literacy classroom. Another approach is the classroom cultures that we create, the little slogans that we hang on our walls. What I find with teenagers, the teenagers that I teach at least, is that they're desperate to be taken seriously by adults. They do not wish to be coddled. They don't wish to be spoken down to. Actually, those are very offensive dispositions to an adolescent brain. And so they like, it seems, this idea of we're gonna do hard work in this class, because why not? Book talks help to create curiosity and interest. That produces value. Purpose produces value. Agency produces value. So this group, Facing History, they say, we help students learn about hatred and bigotry so they can stop them from happening in the future. This is going to probably make students more likely to do the work of these lessons, because they feel a sense of, well, I'm involved. I get to do something. I have agency. So there are really two ways to try to build this in your class if you want to boil it down into what we can do. First, we can communicate in as many ways as possible the value of the reading or writing or speaking we want students to do. And from a position of credibility, that's a big deal. That's very helpful. And students will listen, and some will be swayed. They'll say, okay, well, you're telling me that reading is important, and I know you're a great teacher, so I'm in. Now, the more powerful way, though, I think, is to have the students generate the connection to their values. And to do that, this gentleman from the University of Virginia has really gotten quite a string of studies where he replicates repeatedly positive results. And it's an intervention called Build Connections. So my students walked in a couple of weeks ago, and for their warm-up, I said, I want you to make a T-chart. And on one column, label it A, the other label it B. In column A, I want you to list interests, hobbies, goals, and values. And for the next 3 minutes, I'm just going to prompt you. And if anything comes into your mind while I'm doing this, just write it down. This is a brainstorm. Your goal is at least 5 things here, but let's shoot for 10. If you get 10, you're knocking it out of the park. And so I talk through, okay, tell me about the things that you're interested in doing outside of school. What's the stuff that you just like doing when no one's around? Really importantly, when I get down to values, these are much easier to connect with. I say, so tell me about the kind of person that you want to be. Tell me, picture you as an ideal adult. What do you hope describes that person? Is that person kind? Are they dependable? Are they persistent, resilient? Write down some descriptions of the kind of person that you'd like to be. So you walk them through brainstorming for column A. You're monitoring what they're doing and spurring them on lovingly, saying, hey, I know that you want to be a dependable person. Why don't you write that down? You were telling me that yesterday. And then you get to column B, which is where you're brainstorming things from class. So first you walk them through thinking about what are specific concepts we've learned, specific books we've read, essays we've completed, whatever it is, the specific content of the class, and then zoom out for them again and talk about the broader skills we've practiced. Okay, when we do those debates, when we do small group meetings, when we do conferring, when we keep a reading log, what skills are those aiming to build in us? What are we actually learning how to do when we do those things? Okay, the next step is you have students draw lines between the two. You're again coaching them to think outside the box. This is a chance to be creative. This is a chance to find connections only you can find. You're sort of selling it that way. Then have them explain verbally with a partner. And then Holloman has them write about a connection. So pick one of those lines that you drew, and I just want you to write about it. Use this simple template. Thing from A and thing from B are connected because blank. And write at least one sentence, just right there beneath your T-chart. You see, Holloman has like this worksheet looking thing, but I find it's easier just to do it on a blank sheet of paper. And then Holloman has them finally elaborate. I'll show you a link here in 2 slides to the PDF and the explainer stuff from Holloman and Character Lab. Okay, so it's kind of a like stupidly simple exercise. So it's basically my cup of tea. I like that. I can understand that. But what Holloman has found is when students have done this, and most of his grant money comes from like STEM grants, so he's done this mostly in science classes, but he has found that students who begin the class hating science with a low expectancy of doing anything good in science, those students have significantly higher grades in science, not just that year, but in subsequent years too. They're also more likely to enroll in science elective classes in subsequent years. And these are pretty rigorous studies where like the teachers in the classrooms where they're doing these, they don't even know what the intervention is about. So there's some good study quality. And that's the Building Connections intervention, which you can find through that link that I just had. Okay, what about these kids' identities, their sense of belonging? I've seen in the conference Twitter thread a lot of talk about, we want all of our kids to be readers. Every child deserves to be a reader. Every child should be thinking of themselves as a reader. My life changed when this teacher helped me to see that I too was a reader. This is all belonging belief language. It's all having to do with a child's identity. And it's all really good because we do need to think this way. You and I don't like to do stuff that doesn't line up with how we think of ourselves. So for example, there's some of you in here who are exercisers. You exercise. That's just a part of your identity. Of course you're gonna go work out today. That's who you are. And it takes way less motivation for you to do that than it does those of us who are like, I'm not an exerciser. Or I can see that maybe it would be good to be an exerciser, but I'm not. that's more me. It takes me a lot more willpower than to go out and exercise, simply because it's not what Daphne Oisman would call an identity congruent behavior. People like me don't exercise regularly. I got 4 kids, okay? I'm a teacher. Then I try to write on top of that. I don't have time. It's not an identity congruent behavior. So Greg Walton, who's out of Austin, one of the researchers in the social psychology field, he says that if you're trying to make students have a sense of belonging in your academic community, in the work that you do in your academic community. So for us, we want our kids to think of themselves as readers. I'm the type of person who reads. You hand me something, I'm going to read it. That's just what I do. I'm a compulsive reader. I write. You give me a chance to have a pen in my hand and a piece of paper, I'm going to write. That's what we're after. In order for that to happen, Walton says, step 1 is you want every child in that setting to feel valued, known, and respected. So this goes back to our moments of genuine connection. It's a really low effort way to make students feel valued, known, and respected. From that foundation, it's so much easier to say, hey, Carly, give this a read. Let me know what you think. I think that you might be interested in this. Would you mind reading it for me? If Carly feels valued, known, and respected, it's going to be way easier for her to do that. And by the way, I was going over this morning, I was like, man, that sounds kind of like also a psychopath could do that, to manipulate me into doing stuff. Like, just make them feel valued, known, and respected, step 1. Step 2, get out the Kool-Aid. So I think that obviously the key to all of these is you got to go down to yourself in the heart level. And you've got to value and know and respect Carly. And that is actually my favorite thing about teaching, that I have to do all of this internal work to get to that place. Because man, do you know how she hurt me that day? You know how much that kind of messed with me? How I'm driving home and I'm thinking about what she did in class. Like that dinged me. So to do the work to actually value, know, and respect all the students in our classes, especially the students who hurt us, now we're set up to make, it won't be too hard to make them feel that way. And then of course, the nice thing about belonging is the more that you do it, the more you start to think, I'm the type of person who does this. So like if you were to take me and force me at gunpoint to exercise every day for the next year, guess what? After that year, I'm probably more likely to say, yeah, I'm an exerciser. Eventually it just becomes a part of my identity, who I am. So this brings me to the curious case of Miss Rita. Miss Rita is known as the, I think that people call her the swim Nazi, which is a little bit, edgy to me, but whatever. Miss Rita is I don't know what she teaches, but she takes, here we go. She has a backyard pool, and she has students come into this pool. Pull this over here. Hold on, there we go. Hey, Miss Rita. There you are, Miss Rita. And little kids like Laura, my 3-year-old at the time, and by the end of the week, the beginning of the week, they're terrified of swimming, will not touch water, don't want to go underwater. By the end, here's Miss Rita, there's her son Mike, her assistant, and there's little Laura getting chucked into a pool. She's like, oh no. Speak, hard, kick, all the way. Nice, Laura! All right. And now you're not allowed to be there during like the first part of the day. It's like parents are forbidden. That's real. No parents allowed on day 1, I think is how the little paper says it. And that's because there's a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth. Like, these kids are miserable. Our third daughter got so upset, she was like kind of hyperventilating on the first day, and like these small children are distraught. But You talk to Miss Rita, and she's the nicest person ever, and you're like, you seem to really love kids. Yeah, she does. Loves them a lot, which is why she started this school in her backyard, to make it so that if a child falls in the water, they're not going to drown. And that's her mission, that's her passion. And so on day one, she gets in the pool in front of all these little shivering, nervous, terrified kids, like, okay, Mom and Dad didn't say much about today. I don't know what we're here to do, but Mom looked kind of scared when she dropped me off. And they're sitting on the edge, and Miss Rita's in there with Mike, and she says, look what happens when Mike swims with his head up above the water. He's not moving very fast, is he? Now look what happens when Mike puts his head down in the water and kicks. Whoa, he moves really fast, gets to the edge so he can get out and be okay. And so she says, now you guys are going to try that. And within 30 seconds, the first children are in Rita's and Mike's hands, and they're going, take a breath, kick, 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 take a breath, kick, one more time, kick, kick, kick. Okay, this kid's about set for a few minutes. Next kid, all right, take a breath. Meanwhile, like the fourth kid is like, what is happening right now? So, day 2 comes, and 3 and 4, and as students start to, some of the little kids are like, this is awesome, dunk me again. So those kids are getting moved up to the edges of the pool to jump in, and they're getting down to the end, jumping on the diving board. The kids need a little more one-on-one. They're getting walked through the process nice and slow. But by day 4, most of them are doing what Laura was doing. And after that, they're swimming with their papa in the pool, happy as can be. Before, Laura was not a swimmer. Marlena was not a swimmer. Dean has not yet had the privilege. Little Dean there. He doesn't know what's coming this next summer, but it's coming. It's coming, Dean. His rating's got to be 4 for 4, man. But that's Laura right there. That's Laura up there on the top. So the belonging belief is shaped, too, by doing the thing. That's what I'm saying. So if we can make kids feel valued, known, and respected, and then get a book in their hand, get an article in front of them, get a piece of paper in front of them to do today's free write, get them to do it. I mean, this is the same with standing up in front of their peers. So many of my 9th graders terrified say at the start of the year, I don't do that. Guess how many are doing it now? All of them. Because Miss Rita taught me. You don't give an opt-out. You, in a very warm, safe environment, in a very small way, you take them, you put their head under, and you tell them to kick. Right? So for a pop-up debate, you say, today we're going to do this thing. All you got to do is stand up and read something from your paper. That's it. That's all you're going to do. And by the way, we've had think, pair, shares every day, multiple times for the last 3 weeks. So you've already spoken for the whole class to hear multiple times. This is no sweat for you. You're good. Let's go. And there'll be pop-up debaters. So that's the belonging belief. The effort and efficacy beliefs are quicker. So we're